So Jim Onder is a powerhouse lawyer, friend and mentor of mine, based out of St. Louis. This very understated gentleman is really at the epicenter of much of the mass tort world. And I thought no better person to bring right now. You have a lot of employees. You do a lot of single event. You got your mass tort world. Would love to first get your perspective, Jim, on how you're getting through this, and have a bunch of questions for you, but would really just love to introduce you to our group and get some wisdom and perspective of what you see going on.
I think my situation's a lot like everybody else. You always think your operation's running efficiently and everything's going great, but all of a sudden you find yourself in a situation where, people can't be in the office and they have to work from home. And then how do you deal with that? And I think that's a good thing to talk about because, I'm pretty old school. My idea of working at home was the person goes home and isn't working. That's just the way I have always thought. People, the new millennials and everything are, oh, can I work from home? Can I work from home? And again, my attitude's always been, no, I want to see you in the office so I can walk in and see you and talk to you and share ideas. And I think this is an incredible opportunity, actually, to go back, look at your systems and say, hey, maybe working from home isn't such a bad idea. I find when I've started working from home more and more, and I'm finding I actually get a lot more done because I'm not being interrupted constantly. So over long term, I'm looking at that potential as an opportunity. But I think the biggest challenge we all face is, especially more people who are more old school like myself, are the people really doing work? And are you really able to touch base like you are? And one of the things we forced ourselves to do is start having meetings of our teams. Okay, for example, I had my roundup team. Okay, I'm going to meet. What time do you meet, guys? You always meet 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. Set an early time. The other thing is I make it clear. There's no shutting off your videos. I think one thing I learned is, my kids in high school, and the high school principal said the thing, make your kid get up at the normal time, make him get ready, shower, get dressed, and then sit there and start your work. And I think it's really important that the employees do that as well. And I think one way to force them to actually get in that mindset or regimented mentality is, okay, we have our calls at 8 a.m. and, we got to turn on our video. And so that we're all, we're all seeing that, are we really ready? Are we really prepared for our day? Are we just turning on the computer so we can log our hours on a computer screen? The other thing I've done, in addition to early morning meetings, then setting priorities, and again, setting parameters and setting benchmarks for performance. And I think, we all try to set these in our practice, and we, so many calls per day, number of medical records requests, number of information sheets, things of that nature that we might need from our clients. But I think this is kind of forcing us to solidify some practices that I think are going to really help us long term.
I mean, one of the things we've been talking about on this Zoom has been the genie being out of the bottle, that we're not probably going back to the way things were before. I'm like you, Jim. I wanted bodies in the office, and I felt if they weren't there, we were getting a much lower level of productivity. What are the things you think when this is over that may tweak? Do you think we're going to have 3 days a week in the office, 2 remote? Are we going to be able to give people additional flexibility? Are you more comfortable now with letting people have work from home in the future?
No, absolutely. Before, I was in absolutely no way. There were probably, of our 100-person staff, there were probably 2-3 people that I really trusted and knew that they would actually work hard. But what I'm seeing instead right now is that their productivity is actually increasing. They're getting a lot more done because they're not being interrupted. Now some, of course, if you have kids at home, it's a little bit harder. But by the same token, we're all teaming up and working through it together. I'm definitely become open to the idea of allowing people to work at home a couple days a week. And, after this is all said and done, I really think that people are becoming more productive.
Look, a lot of people, a lot of us know you, a lot of people on this call probably don't. One of the things I've always loved and respected about you is you sort of have your eye, ear to the ground on the mass tort world, and what's, there are a lot of people out there selling different things, but you're one of the guys actually doing it yourself. Maybe giving a little bit of an overview, pivoting for a moment, as a lot of us are reevaluating what's going on in our world. What are you seeing from the mass tort point of view?
A lot of what mass torts, are, getting the client in, getting questionnaires, getting medical, reviewing medical, filling out information sheets, and then on the other end, filing lawsuits and so forth. So we're actually using it as a time to catch up on a lot of that. The problem is, and it's going to be incredible here, is the medical records are falling further and further behind. We get all our requests out, but I can only imagine the stacks of medical records to which these doctors' offices and hospitals are going to come back at the time. So, I mean, that's obviously going to create a big lull in terms of our ability to process. On the mass tort end, honestly, I'm looking at it as a time of opportunity. I think there are going to be a number of mass torts and opportunities out there, be it COVID in terms of the nursing homes or insurance claims and so forth. And I'd be happy to go into my thoughts on those if you like.
Sure. No, and I was going to say yes. And while you're at it, sort of the corollary question is, you have a lot of single event lawyers here, people doing PI, criminal, family, trust and estates. What are the things they should be looking for within their following? Because right now, a lot of people have more time than they have work. What are the things they could be sort of culling through their existing client base? One of them, on prior Zooms, there's been a lot of talk, which is great advice, about calling clients, reaching out, just seeing how they're doing without an agenda. Adding a monetizable agenda to those calls is always a great thing, whether it's cross-selling within the firm. What are some of the things that if somebody is calling their clients right now, they should be on the lookout for?
Yeah, I think right now the largest of the mass torts are the ones that are front and center right now, and are obviously talcum powder. Long-term use of talcum powder can cause ovarian cancer. We've been involved in 7 trials on those cases right now. Especially with your clients who are older, it tends to be a generational thing and a family thing. If mom used talcum powder, daughter uses talcum powder, granddaughter uses talcum powder. Similarly, Zantac. A very high percentage of the population is on Zantac, and it causes cancer. How often you get calls from clients who say, it's been a rough time because someone's diagnosed with cancer. It's always good to ask why. What's involved? What kind of things did they do? Cancer's a tough diagnosis, and but you look at things like Roundup use if it's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. You look talcum powder use if it's ovarian cancer. Zantac causes a whole slew of problems all along everything from the esophagus to the stomach to the intestinal tract to the bladder to the prostate and then as the Zantac filters through the kidneys and the liver. So, in terms of opportunities there when you're talking to people, really get the information. There are also resources available if someone's a single event lawyer with a huge old database or a Social Security disability. There are databases that now they can literally search all of your old medical records and pull out cases. It was amazing. I had a company approach me recently, and they went through my database and they found 11,000 new potential cases just based upon a medical record search in my database. So I think that's really important. As a single event lawyer facing COVID, I think it's important to think about the potential liabilities, and especially things that you might already be doing, like nursing home single events or medical malpractice single events. If there are a lot of federal regulations out there involving nursing homes in terms of cleanliness standards, sanitary standards, et cetera. I think nursing home liability, especially for the deaths, is going to be enormous in the months and years to come. There are a lot of things that the nursing homes could have done. I think for a long time, we in America, we just kind of had this attitude of, oh, it'll be okay, it'll be okay, it'll be okay. And I think a lot of people poo-pooed just how bad it was. And, obviously healthcare providers had a particular obligation to take care of the people in their nursing homes and their facilities and their institutions. And they really kind of dropped the ball if they were poo-pooing the whole thing, not using masks early on, not using distancing protocols and so forth. So I think that it's going to present an incredible opportunity, for single event lawyers, and for, frankly, I think a lot of it will turn into almost even a mass tort.
On the single event side, since that's most of the lawyers on here, any advice you have for them as far as, where they should be allocating time right now? You've answered part of it with that prelude, but, you have a large single event practice. How are you allocating resources right now?
What I'm doing in that regard right now is, fortifying my website, taking my current nursing home website, adding sections involving COVID and, and COVID exposure, COVID death, especially the death cases. There are going to be a lot of work comp cases arising out of it, but COVID doesn't necessarily cause a whole lot of permanency. So it's not, but I'm modifying my resources in terms of and gearing up for the ads. I don't think people right now are thinking my loved one died of COVID, therefore I should be looking for a lawyer right now. I think we're all kind of in shock and we're trying to get through it together. But I think to gear up your advertising and your marketing, campaigns, and be it, Facebook, digital, that you guys were talking about a minute ago, I think you start gearing up those campaigns, start getting your ads ready, and, and start going after it. I don't know that people are in the right mindset right now to really accept that message, because, we've thrown some feelers out there and some test campaigns out there, but I think, things like geo-targeting really work, but it isn't going to work on a nursing home right now because no one's allowed to go in and visit their loved ones. So we're kind of gearing up and preparing for those opportunities.
Well, I just got to say, this Zoom started small, but when I see text coming in from people like the great Mark O'Mara giving compliments to Jim and the knowledge he's dropping, it's kind of a cool 360 here.
I have a quick question, Seth. So one of the things in the title here, Jim, and super excited to hear your wisdom, was, we were talking about managing cash flow, because I talked to Tyson from Max Law, Maximum Lawyer, and he said the biggest concern he was hearing from the lawyers in the Maximum Lawyer Facebook group was cash flow. And then Jay then also said getting leads right now, which I think in a couple of weeks from now, once the quarantine is lifted, it'll probably be less of an immediate, oh my God, where are my leads going to come from right now? And I know some PI verticals are unaffected, but we have over 600 lawyers on this call right now. And if you could kind of speak to every practice area from a zoomed out perspective and say, here's a principle I'm following to manage cash flow, and here's a principle I'm following now and have always followed to get leads regardless of the economy, what advice would you give to everyone?
Cash flow is always a tough issue for all of us in the single event practice. It's always up and down, but the cycles at least go, monthly or quarterly cycles. In Mass Tort, our cycles tend to be 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So we especially have to gear up with cash flow long-term and set up appropriately large lines. The other thing that happened, like during the recession, I know during the recession, banks and the real estate crash, banks didn't want to loan money to lawyers. They started pulling lines of credit. I don't think that's going to happen in this situation because the government's stepping in. But long-term, I think it's important to set yourself up a source of funding. Obviously your lines of credit are there now, and it's a little late for me to tell you, go out and get huge lines of credit. But especially some of these hedge funds, a lot of the hedge funds, even single event lawyers have been taking loans and getting loans and then going after mass tort cases and working with us on mass tort cases. A lot of the hedge funds are starting to back out on their financing, saying money's tight to come by. There are a few out that are still available, such as Fortress. The larger international hedge funds that are diversified are actually going stronger into it now than ever before. So it is, if you haven't already, I highly encourage you to set up lines, with the big private equity and hedge fund type companies to be able to make it through long term, because I suspect that this isn't going to be the last downward market cycle. many of our practices.
So,
it's going to happen again.
Yeah, it always does. And I want to hear more. So I understand the cash flow side of the equation. What are your success habits or beliefs that you carry with you when it comes to getting leads? Because, obviously I just reread the book, The Intelligent Investor, by Benjamin Graham, if you've ever heard of that. And, the book is very big on staying calm while the environment around you is freaking out, and making, long-term decisions while everyone else is making short-term decisions. And you've built a wildly successful practice. And, there's a lot of lawyers on this call who have smaller law firms than you, and are probably thinking, perhaps differently than how you think on a macro scale about your overall marketing push for your firm, regardless of the economy out there. So what are some, do you have tenets or pillars that you stand by when it comes to your marketing?
Yeah, I think I always preach this to mass tort lawyers. Get in when everybody else is getting out, get out when everybody else is getting in. In mass torts especially, you find that there are cycles. If you have a big conference like Mass Torts Made Perfect, where thousands of people, all of a sudden the big thing to go after that conference is, say, Roundup. Well, that's probably not a good time to buy Roundup when everybody else is trying to do it, because the costs go up. I always watch to the bottom of the cycle when everybody else is, right after a major conference, when everybody else is advertising, say, for Roundup, I'll pull and shift my marketing over to, say, a Zantac, or to a talcum powder, or to a Truvada TDF litigation. I think it's important to watch, just the general market principle. Even in the stock market, you want to buy when everybody else is selling, and sell when everybody else is buying. It's a general principle I think applies in all situations, including here. I'm in the process of testing some, TV. I know right now the TV, the various media sources are giving dirt cheap bargains, giving away free spots. A lot of the people who were traditionally paying for their advertising have been able to negotiate a month or two free on TV or billboards. I think it's a good opportunity. If you're someone who, for example, likes to use billboards, no better time to land a low-dollar long-term contract than now. They need your cash flow, because they're dealing with the same struggles we are. They need the cash flow to pay the rent, pay the employees, pay for overhead. If you go into a billboard company, or right now giving 2, 3, 4 months free, and say, I'm willing to sign a 2-year contract with you, but instead of $2,000 a month, I want them for $500 a month. I think you'd be shocked how many of them will say yes, just because they need the money. So think about it from the other side's perspective. Everybody else needs money right now too. Everybody else needs cash right now. And if you just got to think, about the other person's situation.
I think Henry Ford was famous for saying that before every negotiation, he would put himself in the other person's shoes and write out what they wanted before he would ever say what he wanted. And I feel like if we stop worrying about our own 24 inches and, well, what's going to happen with me? And we start thinking about where there is blood in the water in certain niches of marketing, we can find opportunities. One last question I do have on my end, and then I'm sure Seth will have a couple more. And then I think we should dive into Q&A as we're determining the next steps with Jarrett. What has been your experience with the PPP loan, and what would be some advice that you would give to everyone else coming from your perspective?
Absolutely apply for it. I mean, the bottom line is, and I think a lot of people have been sending out this message, but the PPP loan, even if you're able to make payroll and so forth, I mean, the idea is to help you, help you through these hard times. We're all going to have cash flow problems, and the cash flow problem might not be now. It might be when our absence of cases down the road, because you haven't gotten any new auto cases during the 3, 4, 5 months that the COVID went on. So definitely apply. They're very simplified procedures. It's a very, simple form to fill out. And the banks all are highly encouraging. It's low interest rate, and it's going to be forgivable for the most, as long as you use it for appropriate things like, retaining employees and some various overhead expenses are provided. The other thing is the rules on it are changing daily. I would encourage you to get in immediately because I think they're going to run out of money. So, you know, and will it be renewed? Who knows? But get in fast. I know my brother's a physician. He applied and he already got his check. I see a lot of these listservs and so forth. People are already getting their checks in. I'm still waiting for my check, but do get that filled out right away. There's absolutely no reason not to apply for it.
So guys, I want you to make sure in the chat, thank you, Jim. I want you guys to in the chat, let us know how can we serve you best right now by answering questions. What are the things that are in the back of your mind that are most pressing? Either put that in the Q&A or the chat, because we still have, we still have a lot to go through. But I want to make sure here that you guys are awake and that we're on the same page as to what you guys want questions answered to and how we can best serve you. It seems like a lot of the questions are PPP related. So Seth, if you want to message or call Tim, we could pull him in and then Jim and I could handle it until we can get him on.
Another issue right now too is I keep being asked, what about these business interruption claims? I don't know if you've talked about that yet, but we've looked at a good dozen policies now in terms of business interruption claims. And I think another opportunity we're going to see down the road is the government coming in and creating coverage and or underwriting the coverage. If you've looked at any business interruption policies, generally speaking, there are some arguments to be made for coverage, but usually I think the general consensus is there is no coverage. There's the government interrupted my ability to do business. But if you read the fine print, it talks about how that has to be secondary to a covered loss. With the prior epidemics and so forth, and the prior SCARs and some of the other, the insurance companies wrote in exceptions to not cover viruses such as this. And then on the other end, it talks about the government-induced interruption. But the problem is it has to be related to a covered loss, like an earthquake, a tornado, building collapse, something of that nature. But I think what realistically is going to happen is that the government is going to probably step in and create a 9/11 type fund or a BP oil spill type fund and underwrite it. And my thought would be that they'll probably do it through the insurance companies. I know a lot of people are going on TV and right now and advertising for these business interruption claims. I think that's going to be an incredible opportunity down the road if and when the government creates the fund. I see a lot of, my Mass Tort friends, a lot of them are starting to advertise for it. I'm like, hey, have you even looked at a single policy? No, I haven't. What, you don't think there's coverage? And I'm like, no, I don't think there's coverage. And then, but I explain my theory about the fund and they're like, oh, okay. So I think it's really important to think down the road and especially monitor what's going on with the government, because I suspect there are going to be a whole ton of different funds and opportunities as we go forward, that if we're just keeping our ear to the ground and following it, they're going to create opportunities for single event lawyers, for mass tort lawyers, just lawyers in general, as people need help navigating their way through insurance and other issues.